Struggling father sells cake. What the millionaire CEO did in front of her store shocked everyone. Marcus Williams wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the small folding table one more time. The September afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the sidewalk outside Prestige Motors, Chicago's most exclusive luxury car dealership. His 6-year-old daughter Emma sat on a plastic crate beside him, her tiny hands carefully arranging the last batch of chocolate cupcakes they'd baked that morning in their cramped studio apartment. "Daddy, my tummy's making that noise again," Emma whispered, pressing her small hand against her stomach. Her bright blue eyes looked up at him with the kind of trust that both broke his heart and gave him strength to keep going. Marcus knelt down to her level, smoothing back her golden curls that reminded him so painfully of her mother. "I know, sweetheart. Just a few more hours, okay? We need to sell these last 12 cupcakes, and then we'll get you something to eat." The irony wasn't lost on him. Here they were, selling 50-cent cupcakes in front of a dealership where the cheapest car cost more than he'd made in the past 2 years combined. The gleaming Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys in the showroom window seemed to mock their modest setup. But this corner got good foot traffic, and the security guard, Jerry, had taken pity on them and let them stay as long as they didn't block the entrance. Emma began singing softly to herself, a habit she'd developed since her mother died in that car accident 8 months ago. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, something she seemed to create from thin air. Passers-by often stopped, mesmerized by the little girl's voice, though few bought their baked goods. "Excuse me." A crisp, confident voice cut through Emma's song. Marcus looked up to see a young woman approaching their table. She couldn't have been more than 20, with platinum blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail and wearing a tailored navy business suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Everything about her screamed money, from her designer heels to the diamond watch glinting on her wrist. "Yes, ma'am." Marcus stood up, instinctively moving protectively closer to Emma. The woman's ice-blue eyes swept over their setup, the handwritten cardboard sign advertising Emma's special cupcakes, $0, 50 each, the mismatched plastic containers, the worn tablecloth that had seen better days. Her expression was unreadable, but Marcus braced himself for another complaint about them, lowering the tone of the neighborhood. "I'm Charlotte Blackwell," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I own this dealership." Marcus felt his stomach drop. This was it. They were about to be kicked out of their best-selling spot. "Mr. Williams, sir. I mean, ma'am, this is my daughter Emma. We're sorry if we're causing any—" "You're not causing anything," Charlotte interrupted, her gaze shifting to Emma, who had stopped singing and was staring up at the elegant woman with wide, curious eyes. Something flickered across Charlotte's face. Surprise, recognition. It was gone too quickly for Marcus to interpret. "Hi," Emma said brightly, completely unaware of her father's tension. "Do you want to buy a cupcake? Daddy and I made them this morning. The chocolate ones are my favorite, but the vanilla ones have rainbow sprinkles." Charlotte crouched down to Emma's eye level, her expensive suit be damned. "What's that song you were singing? It was beautiful." Emma beamed. "I don't know. It just comes out sometimes. Mama used to say I had music in my heart." Her face fell slightly. "But Mama's in heaven now." Marcus watched, fascinated despite his anxiety, as Charlotte's composed mask slipped for just a moment. Her eyes glistened, and she seemed to struggle with some internal emotion. "I'm sure your Mama is very proud of you," Charlotte said softly. She stood up, reaching into her purse. "I'll take all of them." All of them," Marcus stammered. "Every cupcake." Charlotte pulled out a crisp $100 bill and placed it on the table. "Keep the change." Marcus stared at the money like it might disappear. $6 worth of cupcakes, and she was giving them 100. "Ma'am, I can't accept this. It's too much." "Actually," Charlotte said, glancing toward the dealership, "I have a proposition. It's getting hot out here, and I imagine Emma might like some air conditioning. Why don't you both come inside? I'd like to talk to you about something." Emma clapped her hands together. "Can we, Daddy? Please?" Marcus looked from his daughter's excited face to Charlotte's unreadable expression. Every instinct told him to be cautious. Rich people didn't just invite homeless-looking strangers into their businesses. There had to be a catch. But Emma was already packing up their remaining cupcakes, chattering excitedly about seeing the pretty cars up close. And that $100 bill on the table represented more money than they'd seen in weeks. "Okay," Marcus said slowly, "but just for a few minutes." Charlotte's smile seemed genuine for the first time. "Perfect. And Jerry, could you help Mr. Williams with their table?" The security guard Marcus had befriended over the past weeks appeared as if summoned. "Of course, Miss Blackwell. I'll put everything in the back office." As they walked toward the gleaming entrance of Prestige Motors, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. Charlotte held the door open, and Emma skipped through, immediately drawn to a bright red Ferrari in the center of the showroom. "Daddy, look! It's like Lightning McQueen!" Charlotte watched Emma with an expression Marcus couldn't decipher. There was something almost maternal in her gaze, which seemed impossible given that she couldn't be much older than he was. "She's special, isn't she?" Charlotte said quietly. "She's everything to me," Marcus replied, not taking his eyes off his daughter. "I can see that." Charlotte's voice carried a weight that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. "Marcus, what I'm about to offer you might sound crazy, but I want you to hear me out." Marcus turned to face her fully. "What kind of offer?" Charlotte looked around the empty showroom, then back at Emma, who was now pretending to drive the Ferrari, making soft, vrooming sounds. "I want to help you, both of you. But first, I need to know, are you Emma's biological father?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Of course I am. What kind of question is that?" "A necessary one." Charlotte's expression had shifted back to business mode, but there was something almost desperate in her eyes. "Because if you are, then what I'm about to tell you will change both of your lives forever." Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. "What are you talking about?" Charlotte glanced around again, ensuring they were alone, except for Emma, who was now examining the car's interior with the focused attention only a 6-year-old could muster. "Marcus," Charlotte said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think Emma might be my sister." Charlotte's composure cracked slightly. "Sarah Williams. Blonde hair, blue eyes, about 5'6". Did she ever mention being adopted?" Marcus felt his legs grow weak. How could you possibly know what Sarah looked like? "Because," Charlotte said, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers, "I've been looking for her my entire adult life." She scrolled through her photos and handed him the device. On the screen was a picture of 2 little girls, maybe 4 and 8 years old, playing on a swing set. The younger one had the same golden curls, the same bright blue eyes, the same heart-shaped face as Emma. "That's Sarah," Charlotte whispered, "and that's me." This was taken 3 days before we were separated in the foster system. Marcus's world began to spin. He looked across the showroom at Emma, who was now sitting in the Ferrari's driver's seat, her little hands gripping the steering wheel as she made engine noises. Then he looked back at the photo, at the unmistakable resemblance between the child in the picture and his daughter. "This doesn't make sense," he said, though even as he spoke, pieces were clicking into place. Sarah's reluctance to talk about her childhood, the way she'd always said she had no family. The adoption papers he'd found after she died, but had been too grief-stricken to examine closely. "Sarah was my little sister," Charlotte continued, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "We were put into foster care when I was 8 and she was 4. Our parents died in a house fire. The system promised they'd keep us together, but..." Her voice broke. "They lied. Sarah was adopted by a family in Wisconsin. I aged out of the system at 18 and started looking for her immediately." Marcus sank into one of the leather chairs in the showroom's waiting area. "Why didn't you find her?" "Her adoptive family changed her name. Sarah Chen became Sarah Williams when she married you, which made the search even harder. I hired 3 different private investigators over the years. By the time I traced her to Chicago, she'd already..." Charlotte's voice failed her completely. "The car accident." Marcus finished quietly. I was 2 weeks too late. Charlotte wiped her eyes, smearing her perfect makeup. 2 weeks. If I'd found her just 2 weeks earlier, I could have met my sister. I could have known Emma from birth instead of... Daddy! Emma's voice rang out across the showroom. This car has a button that makes the engine really loud. Can I press it? Not right now, sweetheart, Marcus called back, his mind reeling. He looked at Charlotte, really looked at her for the first time. The bone structure, the way she tilted her head when thinking, even the unconscious way she tucked her hair behind her ear. It was all hauntingly familiar. You really think Emma is your niece? I don't think it, Marcus. I know it. Charlotte's voice grew stronger. Look at her. Really look. She has Sarah's eyes, her smile, her musical ability. Sarah could sing like an angel too. Marcus watched Emma pretend to race around invisible tracks, and his heart broke a little more. What do you want from us? I want to be part of her life, Charlotte said immediately. I want to give you both everything I couldn't give Sarah. I want to make sure Emma never wants for anything ever again. We're not charity cases, Marcus said stiffly, though his pride warred with the practical knowledge that they desperately needed help. This isn't charity. This is family. Charlotte moved closer, her voice urgent. Marcus, I own 17 dealerships across the Midwest. I have more money than I know what to do with, and no one to share it with. I've spent the last 6 years building this empire thinking I was completely alone in the world. And now you want to buy us. Marcus's voice was sharp with defensiveness. Now I want to love the only family I have left, Charlotte shot back. Do you have any idea what it's like to have everything money can buy but no one who cares if you live or die? I've been alone since I was 18, Marcus. Completely alone. Emma's laughter echoed through the showroom as she discovered the car's horn, and both adults turned to watch her. The little girl's joy was infectious, and despite the tension, both Marcus and Charlotte smiled. She's happy, Marcus said softly. Despite everything we've been through, she's still happy. Sarah was like that too, Charlotte said. Even in foster care, even when things were terrible, she could find something to smile about. She paused. Marcus, I'm not trying to replace you or take Emma away. I just want to be her aunt. I want to help take care of her. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching his daughter. Finally he spoke. If what you're saying is true, and I'm not saying I believe it yet, what exactly are you proposing? Charlotte took a deep breath. Move in with me. I have a mansion in Lincoln Park with more bedrooms than I use. Emma could have her own room, her own bathroom, a backyard to play in. You could go back to school, get your engineering degree like you always wanted. I could help with Emma while you study. How do you know I wanted to be an engineer? Charlotte flushed. I may have done some research after I saw you here yesterday. Not invasive research, she added quickly. Just, I wanted to understand your situation. Marcus felt a chill. You've been watching us? I've been trying to figure out if Emma could possibly be Sarah's daughter, Charlotte admitted. When I saw her yesterday, singing that song, it was like seeing Sarah again. The resemblance is uncanny. This is all happening too fast, Marcus said, standing up abruptly. Emma, come here. We need to go. But Daddy, I haven't finished test driving the car. Emma now. The firmness in his voice brought Emma running, her face worried. Are we in trouble? No, sweetheart. We just need to head home. Charlotte stepped forward. Marcus, please, don't leave like this. At least think about what I've said. Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but it's not a game. Charlotte's composure finally shattered completely. For 6 years, I've had nightmares about my little sister dying alone, thinking no one in the world loved her. For 6 years, I've lived with the guilt that I couldn't save her. And now I find out she had a daughter. A beautiful, perfect daughter who's been struggling just to survive. And you think this is a game? Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, why is the pretty lady crying? Marcus looked down at his daughter, then back at Charlotte, who was openly weeping now. Despite his suspicions, despite his fear, he could see the genuine anguish in her face. Because she's sad, baby girl, he said quietly. We could sing her the happy song, Emma suggested. It always makes you feel better when you're sad about Mama. Charlotte's sob caught in her throat. The happy song? Emma nodded seriously. It's about families who find each other even when they're lost. Do you want me to sing it? Marcus felt his heart stop. He'd never heard Emma sing this particular song before. Without waiting for an answer, Emma began to sing in her clear, sweet voice. When the world gets scary and you're all alone, remember that love always finds a way home. Sisters and brothers and daddies and friends, the family you choose is the love that never ends. Charlotte sank to her knees, staring at Emma in wonder. Where did you learn that song? I told you. It just comes out sometimes, Emma said matter-of-factly. Mama used to hum it to me, but I made up the words myself. Charlotte looked up at Marcus, her face pale. Sarah used to hum that melody when we were little. Our grandmother taught it to her before she died. It was the only thing Sarah remembered from before foster care. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. The melody, Sarah's mysterious past, Emma's uncanny resemblance to this woman. It was all starting to add up to something he wasn't sure he was ready to accept. Charlotte, he said slowly, if what you're saying is true, we need to do this properly. DNA tests, legal verification, the whole thing. Of course, Charlotte nodded eagerly. Whatever you need. But Marcus, in the meantime, she gestured around the luxurious showroom. Emma is family, and family takes care of family. Emma looked up at both adults, her 6-year-old mind trying to process the emotional undercurrents. Are you going to be my aunt? She asked Charlotte directly. Charlotte's breath caught. Would you like me to be? Emma considered this with the seriousness only children could muster. Do aunts give hugs? The very best hugs, Charlotte said, tears streaming down her face. Then yes, please, Emma said, and threw her small arms around Charlotte's neck. As Marcus watched his daughter embrace this stranger who might be family, he felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death, hope. But beneath that hope lurked a fear he couldn't shake. If Charlotte really was Emma's aunt, if she really had all this money and power, what would stop her from trying to take Emma away from him entirely? The thought sent ice through his veins, because deep down he knew one terrible truth. If it came to a custody battle between a struggling single father and a wealthy businesswoman who could provide Emma with everything, he might not stand a chance. 2 weeks had passed since that life-changing encounter at Prestige Motors, and Marcus couldn't decide if he was living in a dream or a nightmare. The DNA test results sat unopened on Charlotte's kitchen table, a pristine white envelope that held the power to confirm or destroy everything they'd begun to hope for. The mansion in Lincoln Park was everything Charlotte had promised, and more. Emma had her own suite with a bedroom decorated in princess themes, a walk-in closet bigger than their old apartment, and a bathroom with a bathtub shaped like a seashell. The backyard featured a playground that would make most public parks jealous, complete with swings, a slide, and a sandbox, where Emma spent hours building elaborate castles. Marcus had his own wing of the house, including a home office where he'd started taking online engineering courses. Charlotte had insisted on paying for everything, tuition, books, even a generous monthly allowance, so he could focus on his studies instead of working multiple jobs just to survive. It should have been perfect. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was living on borrowed time. "Daddy, come see!" Emma's voice echoed from the music room Charlotte had set up for her. It had a baby grand piano, a kid-sized drum set, and walls lined with instruments from around the world. Marcus found Emma at the piano bench next to Charlotte, their blonde heads bent together over the sheet music. The resemblance was so striking that his breath caught every time he saw them together. "Listen to this," Emma said excitedly, placing her small fingers on the keys. The melody that emerged was hauntingly beautiful. The same tune she'd hummed since she was tiny, but now accompanied by simple harmonies Charlotte had taught her. "That's incredible, sweetheart," Marcus said, meaning it. In just 2 weeks, Emma's natural musical ability had blossomed under Charlotte's guidance. She was reading basic sheet music, understanding rhythm and tempo, and composing variations on the melodies that seemed to flow naturally from her mind. Charlotte says I have perfect pitch, Emma announced proudly. That means I can hear when something's not right with the music. It's extremely rare, Charlotte said, looking up at Marcus with wonder in her eyes. Maybe 1 in 10,000 people have it. Sarah had it too. There it was again. Another piece of evidence that seemed to confirm their family connection. Marcus had stopped counting the similarities between Emma and the stories Charlotte told about her sister. The way Emma tilted her head when concentrating, her habit of humming while doing puzzles, even her fierce independence that sometimes worried Marcus. It all matched Charlotte's memories of young Sarah. "Can we open the envelope now?" Emma asked, looking between the two adults. Charlotte had explained the DNA test in simple terms, telling Emma it would confirm whether they were really family. Charlotte looked to Marcus. "It's your call." Marcus stared at the envelope. Part of him wanted to tear it open immediately and settle the question once and for all, but another part of him was terrified. If the test was positive, it would change everything legally. Charlotte would have legitimate claim to be part of Emma's life, possibly even guardian rights given her financial resources. If it was negative. "What happens if it's negative?" he asked quietly. Charlotte's face fell. "Then I've been wrong about everything, and you'll probably want us to go back to your old life. And if it's positive, then we become a real family," Charlotte said simply. "Legally, officially, permanently." Emma clapped her hands. "I vote for family." Marcus couldn't help but smile at his daughter's enthusiasm. The truth was, these had been the best 2 weeks of Emma's life. She was eating regular meals, sleeping in a warm bed, and learning things that would have been impossible in their old situation. How could he take that away from her, regardless of what the test said? "Okay," he said, reaching for the envelope. "Let's see what it says." His hands shook slightly as he tore open the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper with official letterhead and several paragraphs of technical language. But the conclusion was clear. Based on DNA analysis, the probability that Charlotte Elizabeth Blackwell and Emma Grace Williams share a close familial relationship, aunt-niece, is 97%. Emma looked between them expectantly. "What does it say?" Charlotte's eyes were bright with tears. "It says we're family, sweetheart. Really, truly family." Emma let out a squeal of delight and launched herself into Charlotte's arms. "I knew it! I could feel it in my heart." Marcus sank into one of the leather chairs, staring at the paper. It was real. Emma really was Charlotte's niece. Sarah really had been her sister. Everything Charlotte had told them was true. "How are you feeling?" Charlotte asked, watching his face carefully. "Overwhelmed," Marcus admitted. "Happy for Emma, but also scared, terrified," he said honestly. "You're her blood family. You have more money than God. If you wanted to take her from me, you probably could." Charlotte was quiet for a moment, absently stroking Emma's hair as the little girl snuggled against her. "Marcus, can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" He nodded. "When I was 14, my foster father tried to assault me. I fought him off and ran away, lived on the streets for 3 months before they caught me and put me in a group home. Do you know what got me through those nights, sleeping in doorways and abandoned buildings?" Marcus shook his head, the thought of finding Sarah again. "The promise I made to myself, that I would never let anyone hurt her the way people had hurt me, that I would protect her and give her everything I never had." Charlotte's voice broke slightly. "I failed her, Marcus. I couldn't find her in time to save her from that car accident, but I can keep my promise to protect Emma." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Emma needs you. She loves you. You're not just her father. You're the one person who's been there for her through everything. I would never try to take her away from you." Charlotte looked directly into his eyes. "But I am going to make sure that you both have everything you need to build the best possible life together." Emma had fallen asleep in Charlotte's arms, exhausted by the emotional excitement of the day. Charlotte shifted carefully to make her more comfortable. "There's something else," she said quietly. "Something I need to tell you about Sarah." Marcus felt his stomach clench. "What about her? The car accident that killed her?" "It wasn't really an accident." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" I hired a private investigator to look into the circumstances. Sarah was being stalked by a man named David Chen, her ex-husband from her first marriage. She'd never told you about him because the divorce was messy and she was afraid. Marcus felt the room spin. Sarah was married before. For 6 months, when she was 19, David was abusive, controlling. She got a restraining order and disappeared, which is part of why she was so hard to find. She'd changed her name, moved states, built a whole new identity. And this David found her? Charlotte nodded grimly. The night she died, she was driving home from work at 2 a.m. because she'd been getting threatening phone calls and was afraid to leave at her normal time. David had been following her for weeks. The investigators think he rammed her car deliberately, then fled the scene. Marcus stared at her, unable to process what he was hearing. Why are you telling me this now? Because David Chen was released from prison 3 days ago. He'd been serving time on unrelated charges, but his sentence was up. And Marcus, Charlotte's voice dropped to a whisper. He's been asking questions about Sarah's family, about Emma. The blood drained from Marcus's face. He knows about her? I don't know for sure, but I have a security team watching the house now, and I think you both need to know why. This isn't just about being family anymore. It's about keeping Emma safe. Marcus looked down at his sleeping daughter, so peaceful and innocent in Charlotte's arms. What do? We protect her, Charlotte said fiercely. Whatever it takes, we protect her, because she's not just your daughter or my niece. She's Sarah's legacy, and I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt her the way they hurt her mother. As if sensing the tension in the room, Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something that sounded like, "Mama." Both adults froze, watching her face for signs that she might wake up. But Emma settled back into peaceful sleep, unaware that the safe haven they'd built around her might already be under threat from a danger they'd never seen coming. Marcus looked at Charlotte, and in her eyes he saw the same fierce protectiveness he felt for Emma. Maybe she was right. Maybe protecting Emma would require both of them working together, because if David Chen was really looking for them, their new family was about to face its first real test. The security alarm pierced through the mansion at 3:17 a.m., jolting Marcus from the first decent sleep he'd had in days. Red lights flashed in the hallway as he stumbled toward Emma's room, his heart hammering against his ribs. The backup generators had kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie crimson glow. "Emma!" He burst through her bedroom door to find Charlotte already there, holding his daughter protectively while speaking in rapid, hushed tones into her phone. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded. "Motion sensors detected someone in the backyard," Charlotte said, her voice deadly calm despite the chaos. "Security team is en route." Emma rubbed her sleepy eyes, surprisingly unafraid. "Is it like a movie, Daddy?" "Something like that, baby girl." Marcus lifted Emma from Charlotte's arms, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "We're going to play a game where we stay very quiet and very safe, okay?" Through the reinforced windows, Marcus could see dark figures moving across the perfectly manicured lawn. Charlotte's security team, 6 men in tactical gear, sweeping the perimeter with military precision. But it was what they were pursuing that made his blood freeze. A lone figure in dark clothing was running toward the tree line at the back of the property, moving with the desperate urgency of someone who knew they'd been caught. "Did they catch him?" Marcus asked. Charlotte listened to her earpiece, her face grave. "He got away. But Marcus..." She held up a plastic evidence bag containing a child's drawing. "He left this by the playground." Marcus stared at the crude crayon sketch. It showed a stick figure man standing next to a smaller figure with blonde hair and a blue dress. Written in shaky block letters across the top were the words, "Daddy and Sarah's girl." "David," Marcus whispered. "We can't stay here," Charlotte said immediately. "I have a safe house in Wisconsin. We leave in 20 minutes. "Wait, just wait," Marcus said, his mind racing. "If we run, he'll just follow us. Emma can't live her whole life looking over her shoulder." "She can't live at all if David gets to her first," Charlotte shot back. "You didn't see what he did to Sarah." The police photos, the evidence of what he'd been planning before she escaped the first time. Emma looked between them, her 6-year-old intuition picking up on the adult fear surrounding her. Is the bad man going to hurt us? Marcus knelt down to her level. No one is going to hurt you, sweetheart. I promise. Double promise, Emma asked, using their special phrase. Triple promise, Marcus said, though his voice wavered slightly. Charlotte's phone buzzed. She answered on the first ring. What did you find? Her face went pale as she listened. Are you sure? Check it again. She hung up and turned to Marcus with haunted eyes. The security footage shows David's been watching the house for at least 3 days. He knows our routines, Marcus. He knows when Emma plays outside, when she has her music lessons, when you leave for classes. Marcus felt sick. How is that possible? Your security team said... My security team failed, Charlotte said bluntly. David Chen isn't some random stalker. My investigator dug deeper into his background after tonight. He spent 2 years in military intelligence before his dishonorable discharge. He knows how to avoid detection. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, can I tell you a secret? Of course, baby, Emma whispered in his ear. I had a scary dream about the dark man 3 nights ago. He was looking for something he lost. Marcus's blood turned to ice. 3 nights ago, the same time David had apparently started his surveillance. What was he looking for in your dream? His little girl, Emma said matter-of-factly. But I told him in the dream that I already have a daddy and I don't need another one. Charlotte sank into the nearest chair. She's been sensing him. Marcus, some children have heightened intuition about danger, especially children who've experienced trauma. Emma hasn't experienced trauma, Marcus protested. She lost her mother in a violent car crash, Charlotte said gently. That's trauma, whether we acknowledge it or not. The security team leader, a grizzled ex-Marine named Torres, appeared in the doorway. Ms. Blackwell, we've swept the entire property. No additional threats detected, but we found evidence of a professional surveillance operation, cameras, recording equipment, detailed logs of the family's activities. How long? Charlotte asked. Based on the equipment placement, at least a week, possibly longer. Marcus felt the walls closing in. What does he want with Emma? Torres and Charlotte exchanged a look. Mr. Williams, Torres said carefully, we found something else in David Chen's surveillance notes. References to Emma's inheritance and what Sarah stole from him. What inheritance? Sarah didn't have any money. Charlotte was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, there's something about Sarah's past I haven't told you, something I only discovered after the DNA test confirmed our relationship. What now? Marcus felt like he was drowning in revelations. Sarah wasn't just adopted as a child. She was the heir to a substantial trust fund left by our grandmother. When she turned 18, she should have inherited over $2 million. Marcus stared at her. $2 million. Where is it? The adoptive family never told her about it. They collected the money themselves, claiming Sarah had died in an accident. It was fraud, but by the time I discovered it, the statute of limitations had passed. What does this have to do with David? David found out about the trust fund during their marriage. He's convinced Sarah hid the money somewhere before she died, and he thinks Emma might be the key to finding it. Emma had been listening to this adult conversation with the intense focus children reserve for things they don't quite understand, but know are important. Mama never told me about any money, she said solemnly. Of course she didn't, sweetheart, Marcus said, because there isn't any money to find. But there is, Charlotte said quietly. Marcus, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this. As Sarah's daughter, Emma is legally entitled to the money that was stolen from our family. I've been working with lawyers to recover it. As of last week, we succeeded. Marcus felt the world tilt again. What are you saying? I'm saying Emma is now worth $8 million, including accumulated interest. The money is in a trust fund that she'll inherit when she turns 18. And David knows this. Torres nodded grimly. His surveillance notes include references to legal documents, trust fund papers. Somehow he's pieced together the inheritance situation. Marcus looked down at Emma, who was humming softly to herself while arranging her stuffed animals in some elaborate pattern only she understood. His 6-year-old daughter was not just the target of a dangerous stalker, she was worth nearly $3 million. "We run," he said finally. "We take Emma and we disappear." "Running won't solve this," Charlotte said. "David will find us eventually. He's had years to plan this, and he's clearly more dangerous than we initially realized." "Then what do you suggest?" Charlotte stood up, her expression hardening into something Marcus had never seen before. "We end this. Permanently." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we set a trap. We use Emma as bait, and we catch David Chen before he can hurt anyone else." "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "I will not use my daughter as bait for a psychopath." "It's the only way to protect her long-term," Charlotte insisted. "We control the situation, we have professional security, and we end this threat once and for all." Emma stopped humming and looked up at both adults. "I'm not scared of the dark, man," she said quietly. "Sweetheart, you should be scared," Marcus said. "He's very dangerous." "But Mama told me something before she went to heaven," Emma continued, her voice taking on an otherworldly quality that made both adults freeze. "She said if bad people ever tried to hurt me, I should remember that love is stronger than fear. And she said to trust the family that finds me." Charlotte's breath caught. "Emma, when did your mama tell you this?" "In my dreams," Emma said simply. "She visits sometimes. She told me you were coming to find us, Aunt Charlotte. She said you'd help Daddy keep me safe." Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes. "Emma, those are just dreams, baby girl." "Maybe," Emma said, tilting her head in that familiar gesture. "But Mama also told me something else. She said the dark man is scared of music. She said if I sing the family song when he's near, it will protect us." Charlotte and Marcus exchanged glances. The family song, the melody that connected 3 generations of their family. The tune that had led Charlotte to find them in the first place. "Emma," Charlotte said carefully, "what exactly did Mama say about the song?" "She said it has magic in it," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "Not movie magic, but love magic. She said when I sing it, everyone who really loves me can hear it in their hearts, no matter how far away they are." Torres cleared his throat. "Ms. Blackwell, we need to make a decision about security protocols. Every minute we stay here increases the risk." Charlotte looked at Marcus. "What if Emma's right? What if we're approaching this all wrong?" "What do you mean?" What if instead of running or setting traps, we trust in the one thing that brought us together in the first place? That song, that connection, that family bond David Chen could never understand." Marcus stared at her. "You want to fight a trained killer with a lullaby. I want to fight a broken, desperate man with the one thing he can never take away from us," Charlotte said firmly. "Love, family, the bond between people who truly care about each other." Emma stood up and walked to the window, pressing her small hand against the bulletproof glass. "He's still out there," she said quietly. "I can feel him watching. He's so sad and angry." "Emma, get away from the window," Marcus said urgently. But Emma began to sing, her clear voice filling the room with the haunting melody of the family song. And somehow, impossibly, Marcus could have sworn he heard an echo of Sarah's voice harmonizing with their daughter's. Outside in the darkness, a figure stepped out from behind the trees, drawn by the sound of the music, like a moth to flame. David Chen stood at the edge of the light, staring up at the house where the woman he'd lost sang to him one final time, through the voice of the child he'd never learned to love. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus understood that this confrontation had been inevitable from the moment David first laid eyes on his stepdaughter. Because this wasn't really about money or custody or revenge. This was about a broken man's desperate attempt to reclaim the family he'd destroyed through his own violence and obsession. But as Emma's song continued to weave its spell through the night air, Marcus realized that David Chen had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the power of a love that transcended death itself. When the song finally ended, David melted back into the darkness as silently as he'd appeared. "He's gone," Torres reported through his earpiece. But he left something. Marcus felt his heart sink. What now? Torres emerged from the darkness carrying a manila envelope. It was pinned to the oak tree by the playground. No explosives, no chemical traces, just this. Charlotte opened the envelope with steady hands, though Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. Inside was a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed Sarah on her wedding day, not her wedding to Marcus, but an earlier ceremony Marcus had never known about. She looked impossibly young, maybe 19, standing next to a tall man with dark hair and intense eyes. But it was Sarah's expression that broke Marcus's heart. She looked terrified, even as she smiled for the camera. "That's David," Charlotte confirmed quietly. "And look at the note." In shaky handwriting, the message read, "She promised to love me forever. She promised Emma would call me Daddy. She broke her promises. Now, I'm going to keep mine." Emma had fallen asleep in Marcus's arms during the long wait, but she stirred now, her eyes fluttering open. "Is the sad man gone?" "For now," Marcus said. "He heard my song," Emma said matter-of-factly. "It made him remember something that hurt." Charlotte knelt beside them. "What do you think he remembered, sweetheart?" Emma considered this with the seriousness of a much older child. "I think he remembered that Mama was scared of him, and I think that made him sadder and angrier." Marcus exchanged glances with Charlotte. Emma's intuition was becoming increasingly unsettling in its accuracy. "Torres," Charlotte said, "I want a complete background check on David Chen's time in military intelligence, and I want to know everything about his psychological evaluations during his court-martial proceedings." "Already on it," Torres replied. "But Ms. Blackwell, we may have a bigger problem. The photograph, we ran it through our facial recognition database. That's not the original David Chen." "What do you mean?" "David Chen died in a car accident 6 months ago. Whoever's been stalking your family has been using his identity." The revelation hit the room like a bomb. Marcus felt Emma's small body tense in his arms, as if she'd sensed the adult's shock. "Then who the hell have we been dealing with?" Marcus demanded. Torres pulled out his tablet, showing them a series of photographs. "We think it's Michael Chen, David's younger brother." Michael had a severe psychological break after David's death. He was hospitalized for 3 months, during which time he became obsessed with the idea that he needed to fulfill his brother's unfinished business with Sarah. "So he's been pretending to be David." "More than that," Charlotte said, studying the psychological evaluation reports Torres had pulled up. "According to this, Michael genuinely believes he is David. Complete dissociative identity disorder triggered by grief and guilt." Emma sat up in Marcus's lap. "The man isn't pretending to be someone else. He really thinks he's someone else." "That's right, sweetheart," Charlotte said gently. "He's very sick in his mind. Like when I pretend to be a princess, but I know I'm really Emma." "No, baby girl. He's forgotten that he's pretending." Emma nodded solemnly. "That's very sad. No wonder his heart is so broken." Marcus stared at his daughter. "Emma, how do you know his heart is broken?" "I can hear it in his feelings," Emma said simply, "the same way I can hear music that hasn't been played yet. Some people's feelings are very loud." Charlotte and Marcus locked eyes. Emma's empathic abilities were clearly far beyond normal childhood sensitivity. "Torres," Charlotte said, "what's Michael Chen's background?" "Former army medic, 2 tours in Afghanistan. No history of violence until David's death, but since then he's been in and out of psychiatric facilities. He escaped from a secure facility in Ohio 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks, Marcus repeated, "right around the time he started watching us." "There's something else," Torres continued. "Michael's medical records show he suffered severe head trauma during his last deployment. The doctors believe it may have contributed to his current psychological state." Emma slipped down from Marcus's lap and walked to the window again. "He's coming back," she said quietly. "Emma, get away from there," Marcus said urgently, but Charlotte held up a hand. "How do you know he's coming back?" "Because he needs to finish his story," Emma said, "and his story isn't finished until he talks to me." "Absolutely not," Marcus said. "You are not talking to that man." But Daddy, what if he just needs someone to listen to him? What if he's been so sad and angry because no one has ever listened to his story? Charlotte felt her breath catch. Emma, sweetheart, what exactly are you suggesting? Emma turned from the window, her 6-year-old face serious beyond her years. What if we invite him inside? What if we give him some cookies and milk and let him tell us why he's so sad? Mama always said that most mean people are just scared people who forgot how to ask for help. Emma, this man is dangerous, Marcus protested. He's dangerous because he's lost and confused, Emma corrected. But he's not a monster, Daddy. Monsters don't cry when they hear music about families. Torres spoke into his earpiece, then looked up grimly. Movement detected on the north perimeter. Single individual approaching the main entrance. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He's coming to the front door. Bold move for someone who's been hiding in shadows, Charlotte observed. Emma clapped her hands together. See, he wants to knock like a proper visitor this time. The doorbell chimed through the mansion's intercom system, a perfectly normal sound that somehow felt surreal given the circumstances. Torres and his team took defensive positions, while Charlotte pulled up the front door camera feed on her tablet. Michael Chen stood under the porch light, no longer hiding in the shadows. He looked exhausted, his clothes disheveled, his face gaunt from weeks of living rough. In his hands, he held a small wrapped package. "This is our chance," Torres said quietly. "We can take him now, end this whole situation." Wait, Emma said, tugging on Charlotte's sleeve. "Look at what he brought." Charlotte zoomed in on the package. It was wrapped in child's birthday paper, pink with cartoon princesses, and had a small card attached. "He brought me a present," Emma said wonderingly. "Nobody brings presents to people they want to hurt." Charlotte's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Please, I just want to give Emma something that belonged to her mother. Then I'll go away forever. I promise." Marcus read the message over Charlotte's shoulder. "It's a trap." "Maybe," Charlotte said, "or maybe Emma's right. Maybe he just needs someone to listen." Torres shook his head. "This is tactically unsound. We have no control over the situation if we let him inside." "But we have Emma," Charlotte said quietly, "and if what she's been telling us is true, if she really can sense his emotional state, maybe she's our best weapon against him." "My daughter is not a weapon," Marcus said firmly. "No," Charlotte agreed. "She's something much more powerful. She's exactly what Michael Chen has been looking for. A connection to Sarah that might help him find his way back to sanity." Emma walked to the intercom panel and pressed the speaker button before any of the adults could stop her. "Mr. Michael," she said clearly, "would you like to come in for cookies and milk? Aunt Charlotte makes really good chocolate chip cookies." Through the speaker, they heard a broken sob. You know my real name?" "I know lots of things," Emma said matter-of-factly. "I know you miss your brother David. I know you think if you take care of me it will make David happy. But Mr. Michael, David is in heaven with my mama now, and they want you to be happy too." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, "How could you possibly know that?" Emma looked up at Marcus and Charlotte, seeking permission. Charlotte nodded slowly. "Because sometimes, when I dream, I see the people who love us, even though they're not here anymore. And David isn't angry at you, Mr. Michael. He's worried because you're so sad." Marcus heard Charlotte's sharp intake of breath. Torres was speaking rapidly into his earpiece, coordinating his team's positions. But Marcus found himself focused entirely on his daughter's face, the absolute certainty in her expression, the compassion beyond her years. "Emma," came Michael's voice through the intercom, "would you like to see the present I brought you? It was your mama's favorite necklace. David gave it to her for their anniversary." Emma looked at Marcus. "Can I see it, Daddy? Just through the window?" Every instinct Marcus had screamed against it, but he found himself nodding. Charlotte activated the external camera feeds, and they watched as Michael carefully unwrapped the small package. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a musical note pendant, the same necklace Marcus remembered Sarah wearing in a few old photographs, though she'd told him it was lost in a fire. "It's very pretty," Emma said through the intercom. "But Mr. Michael, I think Mama would want you to keep it, to remember the good times before everyone got so sad and scared." Michael's composure finally shattered completely. Through the camera, they watched him sink to his knees on the front porch, clutching the necklace and sobbing. "I don't know how to stop hurting," he whispered. "I don't know how to live without David. I thought if I could just fix what he broke." "You can't fix the past, Mr. Michael," Emma said gently, "but you can choose what happens next, and I choose to forgive you for scaring us, if you choose to get help for your hurting heart." Charlotte looked at Marcus with tears in her eyes. She's giving him a way out, a way to surrender without losing everything. Marcus watched his 6-year-old daughter offer compassion to the man who had terrorized their family, and realized that Emma had understood something the adults had missed. Michael Chen wasn't their enemy. He was another victim of David's violence, trapped in a delusion that had spiraled out of control. "Mr. Michael," Emma continued, "would you like Aunt Charlotte to call some nice doctors who help people when their hearts and minds get too sad? They have a special place where you can rest and remember who you really are." Through the intercom, they heard Michael's broken whisper, "Yes, please, I'm so tired of being someone else." Torres was already coordinating with emergency medical services, but Marcus barely heard him. He was watching his daughter, this extraordinary child who had somehow inherited not just Sarah's musical gifts, but her ability to see the humanity in even the most broken people. As the first ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, Emma finally stepped back from the intercom. "Is he going to be okay now?" she asked. "I think so, sweetheart," Charlotte said. "Thanks to you." Emma nodded matter-of-factly. "Mama always said the best way to stop hurting people is to help them stop hurting themselves." Marcus knelt down and gathered his daughter into his arms, marveling at the wisdom contained in her small frame. "How did you get so smart, baby girl?" "I learned it from my family," Emma said simply. "All of them, even the ones I've never met." And as the emergency vehicles pulled into their driveway to help Michael Chen begin his journey back to sanity, Marcus realized that their own journey as a family was just beginning. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the wings of the Chicago Symphony Center, watching Emma tune the small violin Charlotte had given her for her 7th birthday. The evening's benefit concert, Music for Mental Health Awareness, had sold out within hours, with people coming from across the country to hear the little girl whose song had saved a broken man's life. Michael Chen sat in the front row, his eyes clear and focused for the first time since David's death. The experimental treatment program Charlotte had funded at Northwestern Memorial had worked slowly but steadily, helping Michael separate his own identity from his brother's ghost. He'd written Emma dozens of letters during his recovery, all of them filled with gratitude and wonder at the compassion she'd shown him during his darkest hour. "Are you nervous, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, adjusting Emma's dress, a beautiful blue gown that matched her eyes perfectly. "A little," Emma admitted, "but Mama's here with me. I can feel her in the music." Marcus smiled, no longer surprised by his daughter's matter-of-fact references to Sarah's presence. Over the past months, Emma's remarkable empathic abilities had been studied by researchers at Northwestern, who'd concluded that her brain showed unusual patterns associated with heightened emotional intelligence and perfect pitch. Dr. Rebecca Torres, the lead researcher and coincidentally the sister of their former security chief, had called Emma a once-in-a-generation talent with extraordinary healing abilities through music. Charlotte appeared beside them, elegant in a black evening gown that made her look more mature than her 21 years. The past months had changed her too, softening some of her edges while strengthening her resolve to use her wealth for meaningful purposes. The mental health foundation she'd established in Sarah's name had already funded 3 new treatment facilities across the Midwest. "The audience is ready for you," Charlotte said, straightening Emma's violin case strap. "Remember, just like we practiced, let the music tell the story." Emma nodded solemnly. "I know. Mama showed me in a dream last night how to make the song even more beautiful." Marcus and Charlotte exchanged glances. They'd stopped questioning Emma's dream conversations with Sarah months ago, especially after Dr. Torres had explained that children who'd experienced trauma sometimes developed profound, intuitive abilities as a coping mechanism. "Places, everyone," the stage manager called. Marcus gave Emma one final hug. "I love you, baby girl." "I love you too, Daddy. And Aunt Charlotte and Uncle Michael when he's feeling better, and all the people out there who need to remember that families can heal broken hearts." Emma walked onto the stage with the confidence of someone 3 times her age. The massive audience fell silent as she raised her violin and began to play the melody that had brought them all together, the family song that had connected 3 generations and saved 2 lives. But tonight, Emma's version was different. Richer, more complex. As her bow danced across the strings, Marcus could have sworn he heard harmonies that weren't there. Sarah's voice, their grandmother's voice, even David's voice, joining in a chorus of healing and forgiveness. In the audience, Michael Chen wept openly, finally understanding that his brother's legacy didn't have to be defined by violence and obsession. Scattered throughout the crowd, other audience members began to cry as well. People struggling with their own mental health battles, families torn apart by trauma, individuals who had lost hope in the possibility of healing. But Emma's music carried a different message tonight. It spoke of second chances, of love that transcended death, of the extraordinary power of a child's compassion to transform even the darkest situations into something beautiful. As the song reached its crescendo, Emma began to sing in her clear, sweet voice. "When the world gets scary and you're all alone, remember that love always finds a way home. Sisters and brothers and daddies and friends, the family you choose is the love that never ends." Even when hearts break and minds lose their way, music remembers what words cannot say. In every note played and every song sung lives the hope that keeps us forever young. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 10 minutes, but Marcus was focused on his daughter's face, glowing with joy and purpose as she took her bow. After the concert, as they walked through the reception area, Marcus overheard conversations that filled his heart with pride. "My daughter has been struggling with anxiety for years. But hearing that little girl tonight, it's the first time she's smiled in months. I've been thinking about my sister who died in that accident. Maybe it's time to forgive myself and honor her memory instead of just mourning it. That child has a gift, not just musically, but something deeper, something healing." Michael Chen approached them near the end of the evening, looking healthier than Marcus had ever seen him. "Emma, I wanted to thank you again, and to give you this." He handed Emma a small wrapped package. Inside was Sarah's musical note necklace, the one he'd tried to give her that terrifying night 6 months ago. "I think your mama would want you to have this now," Michael said. "To remember that even broken things can become beautiful again if someone loves them enough to help them heal." Emma fastened the necklace around her neck, where it caught the light like a tiny star. "Thank you, Uncle Michael. It's perfect." "Uncle Michael?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. Emma shrugged. "Family isn't just about blood, Daddy. It's about people who choose to love each other even when it's hard. Uncle Michael chose to get better so he could be part of our family the right way." Charlotte knelt down to Emma's level. "Speaking of family, I have something to ask you both." She looked nervously at Marcus. "I know this might seem fast, but Marcus, would you consider letting me adopt you both? Legally, I mean. I want to make sure nothing can ever separate our family again." Marcus felt his breath catch. "Charlotte—" "I'm not trying to replace anyone or change anything about your relationship with Emma," Charlotte said quickly. "I just want us to be legally bound together the way we already are in our hearts. I want Emma to have everything Sarah should have had: stability, security, unconditional love, and the knowledge that she'll never be alone in this world." Emma clapped her hands together. "Does that mean you'd be my mama aunt and Daddy would be my daddy and we'd all live together forever?" "Something like that," Charlotte said, laughing through her tears. Marcus looked around at their unlikely family, his daughter with her magical music and healing heart, Charlotte with her fierce protectiveness and unlimited resources, even Michael with his hard-won wisdom about the power of choosing hope over despair. "Yes," he said finally. "Yes, I think Sarah would like that very much." Emma began humming the family song again, and Marcus realized that this melody would continue to weave through their lives, connecting past and future, bringing together broken pieces and making them whole. As they walked out of the symphony hall together, Emma skipping between Marcus and Charlotte, while chattering about all the people she wanted to help with her music, Marcus felt Sarah's presence one final time, not as a ghost or a memory, but as a living part of the love that surrounded them. The family song had found its way home at last, carried in the voice of a remarkable little girl who had learned that the most powerful magic in the world was simply the choice to love unconditionally, forgive completely, and believe that every ending could become a beautiful beginning. 3 years later, Emma Williams Blackwell would give her first full concert at Carnegie Hall, with Michael Chen serving as the director of her Foundation for Music Therapy in children's hospitals. Marcus would have completed his engineering degree and opened his own firm specializing in accessible housing design. And Charlotte would be planning her wedding to Dr. Rebecca Torres, having discovered that family comes in many forms, all of them perfect when built on love. But that night, walking through the Chicago streets with their arms linked together, they were simply a family who had found each other against impossible odds and chosen to build something beautiful from the broken pieces of their past. Emma's song continued to echo through the night air, a promise that love really does find a way home, and that the families we choose are often the ones that save us.